My Hero Academia was one of the first anime I ever watched and one that I really fell in love with, which is why my channel name and profile picture is from that anime. However, my love for the show kind of dwindled on throughout the years just because the anime kind of fell off. Season 4 wasn't really that good, and season 5 was even worse. And eventually I just kind of stopped watching. However, that is until a couple months ago I actually started reading the manga. And now I'm actually caught up to the most recent arc, and I read it week to week like everyone else, or whenever a chapter comes out. So I thought today we could rank all the arcs from the anime, because My Hero Academia is actually pretty inconsistent with its quality. Like, sometimes it has some absolute bangers, yet other times it's just kind of boring. Now, despite me being caught up to the manga, this tier list I'm doing doesn't actually have the most recent couple of arcs. In fact, the last one is the Endeavor Agency arc, which I'm almost certain was covered in the anime. I still haven't finished the anime. Like, I'm not caught up. Once season, what's the next one, 7 comes out, I probably will get caught up, but for now, I haven't seen like the last 10 or so episodes. But since there aren't any manga only arcs in this tier list, I feel like it would make sense for me to not talk about them and try to, make this as anime friendly as possible. So if you are an anime only, I'll try my best not to spoil anything. I might reference how it kind of set up a future arc, but I will be very vague and not really go into details at all. But the first couple arcs are actually pretty short. The first one we have is the entrance exam arc, which spans from chapters 1 through 4 and episodes also 1 through 4, I believe. Honestly, this kind of started off the whole series, so I can't really rate it too lowly, but it didn't really do much. It set up the plot, and that's what it did. It showed One for All, it showed All Might, gave a lot of exposition, it introduced us to a lot of characters, but it can't really it wasn't so entertaining that I put it in A, so I think for now we're gonna put it in B. The Quirk Apprehension test was 3 chapters and 2 anime episodes long, so even shorter. And honestly, I might put it in C, but I think for now I'll also put it in B because it wasn't a bad arc by any means, but it's barely an arc, right? This feels like an event that would occur in a large arc, but this is technically an entire arc of its own. So it was enjoyable, but it wasn't anything special. The battle trial arc though is when it gets a little more interesting. This was chapters 8 through 11 and 6 through 8. During this point of the manga and anime, Deku and Kachan's rivalry was really one of the most enticing parts, and it was done really well here. Kind of show how he's not really used to using his power, so he has to resort to more creative methods to win his fights. And Kachan, he's all about brute force. I mean, he does do a lot of strategy, but he just wants to win. Winning is all he wants to do. He wants to and to him, winning is defeating his opponents, which wasn't really the objective of the battle trial. So it kind of shows the differences between them. So Deku ended up winning in a way that wasn't defeating Kachan, and it just really showed how well One for All was used in the earlier parts of the series, when Deku had to be a little bit more strategic with it instead of just regulating his power and going beyond his limit when he needed to. So I think we're going to plump that right into A tier. That was a really good arc. USJ2 was also really good. That was chapters 12 through 21 and episodes 9 through 13. Seeing All Might seriously in action for the first time was really cool. And one part that I absolutely loved was kind of that whole thing of All Might. He was always a beacon of hope, someone who was always smiling no matter what the circumstance. But here, he was visibly frowning. He seemed really angry, really upset. And you can just show how much he cared about the kids at UA and see how much he was just putting his all into this battle. You can also kind of see how the embers of One for All were kind of starting to fade away, because I believe there's a line in the arc. I could be wrong, but I remember reading something the All Might could have easily destroyed that Nomu if he was at his peak power, but because of the fight against All for One and the fact that he gave away One for All, his power is starting to decrease a lot. So he's just a lot weaker, but still he put everything in. Also, the other classmates, they all did really well. I guess that is one thing I kind of wanted to see more. We didn't really get to see too much of them, but just enough. All Might really was though the best part of the arc. Shigaraki though, we were introduced to League of Villains, which is huge for the series. League of Villains, in general, I really like the League of Villains. I like Shigaraki. Shigaraki, one of the main reasons I like him isn't even because of the story, just because his art is always on point. Every single page. If you watch the anime, I just recommend checking out some of the manga. so many scenes with Shigaraki are just so absolutely well drawn. And I also like how he's not some like genius mastermind. I mean, that role was kind of saved for All For One, but he's just kind of like this kid who he wants to destroy everything, which like on a surface level seems, you know, very one-dimensional and, you know, like not really developed at all. But that kind of makes him more intimidating, the fact that he is just this like one note, like I want to destroy everything I don't like type of character. It's just it just seems unhinged, especially for how powerful he is. So USJ, I think I'm also gonna put into A tier. Not quite S, but still very good. Sports Festival though, I think was phenomenal. So many matchups were just done so well. Besides obvious, like Deku versus Todoroki, I mean, obviously great match. Bakugo versus Todoroki, I also really like that. There's also Bakugo versus Uraraka, which I think is a battle that people don't really talk about that much, but I still really enjoy it. Because it kind of shows both the mentality of Bakugo, where, you know, he was kind of portrayed to be kind of one-dimensional before, but this kind of shows how, you know, he also respects Uraraka. Even though he doesn't like seem to respect anyone besides himself, he still acknowledges like, yeah, there are these other people who are powerful and they do like deserve the respect of me putting all my effort into beating them. Also, the anime too, there are some battles that were off screen in the manga that I think the anime did a good job of adapting, where I think it was Todoroki versus Yaoyorozu. In the manga, it was kind of like one or two panels, or like maybe a couple, just saying what happened and like how the battle played out. But in the anime, it was actually really well done. They did an entire battle of it, and I don't think it was too long. It probably only like a minute or two, but it did contribute to Yaoyorozu's character development later on, when like her entire thing of feeling like inferior to others, and like especially during the final exams arc. But even besides those last couple of battles, I think that's like one of the weaker parts of the arc. I genuinely think like the cavalry battle and the obstacle course were the best. Like seeing Deku not using his powers and have to actually like strategize and stuff, that was amazing. And then the cavalry battle too was also really entertaining. So Sports Festival, I think I'm putting in S tier. Hero Killer Stain 2 was really good. This section of the story didn't miss. And it's crazy to see, like looking back here, obviously it won't get spoilers, but to see how much the series has shifted like towards what's happening more recently. I mean, it's kind of gone back to normal, but like that like last like 2 or 3 arcs, it was just insane. And it's like they're both really good sections of the story, just in such different ways. But Stain was a really cool villain. I thought his design especially was really good. I thought his quirk was really interesting too, which is another thing. The quirk system is one of my favorites in anime. Just the fact that it's so specific, that it can be very powerful, but it also has its own drawbacks and stuff. Also, Ida's entire thing, like you can really tell in this specific arc that Horikoshi like really didn't mind letting others have the spotlight a little more. Which, I mean, Ida didn't take down Hero Killer Stain, so that might be, you know, a bit unfair to say. But, like, his character development was put first and foremost, I truly believe, over, like, Deku's and the others. I mean, Deku did, like, use his time to, you know, train and get better control of One For All. But Ida, I think, was also the really main highlight of this arc. Also, the actual battle, I think, was choreographed really well. Todoroki's entrance was great, Deku's entrance was great. Overall, it was just a really good arc. Also, all the stuff with Gran Torino, you know, Deku learning how to control his power, that was also a really big major development. The Nomus too, you know, Shigaraki, he also made an appearance. Overall, it's a very good arc. I don't know whether to put it into A or S though. I think for now we can put it into S, but it might be lowered down to A. I'm not even gonna lie. Final Exams was a really good arc. I don't think it was as good as some of the others. I think I'm gonna put in A, but it was very battle heavy. It did feature a lot of character development for Yaoyorozu, Deku, Bakugo. I think that actually might be it. Like the other characters, they were shown, they had battles and stuff, and I do think this arc did help in getting the reader or viewer to understand the characters a little better, you know, be more familiarized with them, you know, get a little bit more attached with them. But honestly, the only really characters that stood out to me were those three, Yaoyorozu, Deku, and Bakugo. Deku and Bakugo versus All Might was a great battle. Again, showed good character development from both of them. Yaoyorozu and Todoroki versus Aizawa, very good battle. Yaoyorozu got a lot of character development there. Todoroki, not really as much, still a little bit. But the battle was good, and I think a lot of the other battles were also really entertaining, which is what earned the spot in A. I think the battles did carry it, but there wasn't much besides the battles that really could get it in S tier. And honestly, this also might be moved down to B. The Forest Training Camp arc was also very good. I really like the ending with Bakugo being taken away and just giving that sort of like sense of despair to the heroes, because no matter what way you see it, they kind of lost, right? This was a very major defeat to both UA and like to society as a whole. They were kind of seeing like maybe UA isn't really that secure. Like, what are they doing? Why is Class 1A just getting attacked all these times? The villains are really messing things up. Of course, Deku took down Muscular and like Moonfish or Silverfish, whatever. That guy, he also got taken down. Class 1B took down the Poison Gas guy. Don't really remember his name, but it was a very big loss for them. To go back to Deku versus Muscular a bit, I did like the fact that Deku saved Koda, but of course him going like, oh, go beyond plus ultra, and getting that one punch to end him was a bit plot armory. Like, I miss when Deku used strategy to win battles, like going back to like Sports Festival or just a Battle Trial arc, comparing Deku versus Bakugo there and Deku versus Muscular here, it's like night and day. Now Deku just punches and then really good, and then villain goes flying vroom, and Deku just has broken arm and stuff. Although there was the one big consequence that Deku, it's not like his arm magically gets healed every arc. There are consequences, although the consequences, I don't really know if they like played out as much as I wanted them to. Like Deku, not like his arm was in danger after that arc. Like his arm was busted, right, and it was healed, but if he did something like that again, it could just be gone forever, right? And that inspired shoot style, which is a main part of his moveset now, but it didn't really impact that much. Besides from that, he ended up using his arm like a season later, or was it a season later? Yeah, just like a season later. And I guess that's enough time, or like for the manga, that's like what, 2 or 3 arcs later. So it's like, this arc did though introduce a lot of characters that I really like. Mr. Compress, I do enjoy. He's not really that complex of a villain, but his design and his powers and his personality, they're all like really good. Dabi and Twice though, those are 2 major ones, right? Because Dabi, I think, was introduced in Hero Killer along with Toga. Twice, I don't think so. I think he was introduced in this arc. I could be wrong though. And both of them are really interesting villains. Obviously you can kind of see if you're a manga reader that they become a little bit more prominent later on, and overall they're great characters. But despite me hyping it up, I think I might put it in B tier. I might add it to A tier later. I might even flip-flop this and the final exams arc. I need to like check back after I'm done with all this. The Hideout Raid arc though, I think I'm gonna have to do S tier. This arc was just amazing. Honestly, entertainment wise, I don't think it stands up to the Hero Killer Stain arc and the Sports Festival arc. And you might think I'm crazy for saying that, but it's just like, it's the what it did for the story is so insane. Like while you're watching it, All Might being retired, it's a big deal, but you don't realize how much of a big deal it is until you look back later on and see how much the story had changed because of it. Also, the whole plotline of Deku wanting to save Bakugo, but then Ida and everyone like not wanting him to, and just like Kirishima, he's like, oh, you can still like lend your hand out, you can still reach Bakugo, and all that stuff I thought was really great. And the way they hyped up All For One, I thought was really cool. The scene where he comes in and then all the kids are like so scared that they can't even move, and these are characters who face against actual villains before. Like Deku's faced against Muscular, they've seen like Shigaraki and all that, but like this shook them to their core. They've seen villains, they've handled villains, but All For One is just on a completely like different level. And as much as it changed for the heroes, it also changed for the villains, because All For One did go into custody after that battle, and Shigaraki just kind of became the head honcho of the League of Villains. And I think the anime too also really elevated this arc. The music during All Might's battle with All For One, and then just the animation and everything. Actually, I'm almost certain that that battle is Crunchyroll's most viewed video. I could be wrong, but I'm almost certain it is, and for good reason. It was just such a good battle. Probably without the anime like influencing me, I might put it in A, but just that battle was so elevated by the anime. Like it was so good. Now, you might have noticed that these past couple of arcs have been really good. The next arc must be really good as well. It is not. It is not really good. It's the provisional licensing exam, and a lot of people like to hate on this arc. And for good reason, kind of. It's not terrible. It's not bad, really, at all. It's an entertaining arc. It just drags on. It has probably the least impact on the story out of the last couple of major arcs. And yeah, I mean, they have the provisional licenses at the end, except for Deku, except for Bakugo and Todoroki, except like they just end up getting it later. But it was interesting. I think it was entertaining. So it's not like completely bad. I am putting it in C tier though, just because it wasn't good. It wasn't bad, but you can't really make the argument that it was a good arc, really. The anime though, you know, another thing that the anime did to elevate this arc, they did include how some of the applicants passed, namely Yaoyorozu, Jiro, Tsuyu, and I'm blanking on, is it Shoji? It might be Shoji. Those, they showed their battle against that one character who like drinks a tea and stuff, and I think she's a filler character. I don't think she was actually in the manga, but they kind of showed, you know, how they passed, which I thought was really interesting. Bakugo, Kirishima, and Kaminari, their battle against the weird meatball guy, I thought was good. And honestly, Deku's part of the story might be like maybe the least engaging out of all, now I'm thinking about it. It seemed like Todoroki versus that wind guy, I thought that was pretty good. Wasn't anything like amazing though, and overall it wasn't a super engaging arc to read or watch. The Overhaul arc is honestly pretty hard to rank. The anime, here's the thing, the anime was much worse than the manga, and I feel like that's not a statement that like it's not really much of a hot take, but that Overhaul fight at the end, like Overhaul versus Deku, was amazing in the anime, that very last scene, and the manga doesn't even like compare to that. So the Overhaul arc, I am going based off the manga mostly. I mean, if the anime like makes you like the arc a little more, then you know, so be it, but for this, it's like I know what the arc is really like, so the anime being worse doesn't really make my experience with the arc in general worse, right? And I think overall watching both the anime and reading the manga is kind of like a really good way to consume the series, because you kind of get both sides and see what the anime studio does to improve the arc, and like what the manga like originally does, and like that original story. And I think at this point, like season 4 is kind of where the anime studio kind of stopped like making the arcs better and kind of made them a little worse. But Overhaul, I did think was a really cool villain. His henchmen weren't really that interesting though. Like the side villains, I didn't like in this arc, and they kind of spent a decent chunk of time like with them and like developing them kind of. The only one that I really like didn't hate was the guy who really liked fighting and fought Kirishima. And like Kirishima, he also had some good stuff. You know, there was some character development there. I guess also the lack of like Bakugo and Todoroki, that kind of sucked. But hey, now there's Night Eye, and Night Eye is cool. And also Mirio, I forgot to mention him in the provisional licensing exam, which now makes me realize that the provisional licensing exam kind of contained, it was kind of like a mix of stuff, right? Because at the beginning there was also all the dorm stuff where they like did the dorm tours, and I thought that was sick. I thought those couple of chapters were really cool. And there's also near the end, there's like the big three and all of them, and I like the big three in general. I think the big three are cool characters, but I think the highlight of this arc was Mirio versus Overhaul. I do not think Deku versus Overhaul really was like, it just couldn't get there. It could not. Mirio versus Overhaul was just so much better. Mirio is such a cool character. Also Eri, you know, that scene where like Mirio covers Eri with his cape, and it's good. It's so good. And Eri in general, that whole plotline was really interesting. You know, like someone like exploiting a little kid's quirk to just for profit and to like make drugs and stuff, and like putting that child through so much pain and abuse. It was crazy. So I think Overhaul arc could have been better. It was an interesting concept. Even in the manga, it could have been a bit better. The remedial course arc was whatever. Like it was, who cares? This is like, it's barely an arc, honestly. Just like the Quirk Apprehension says, it's barely an arc. It's not that entertaining. It's entertaining enough. I mean, it's probably the worst arc out of the ones I've ranked so far. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not much. Like, the kids were annoying and then they weren't annoying, and it's like, okay, that's cool, I guess. Endeavor had to talk with All Might, which was probably one of the better parts of the arc, but that wasn't really that cool. But like the important part of the remedial course wasn't really like shown much. It was only that last part with like the kids and all that stuff. So it's not like Bakugo and Todoroki getting their like licenses was really earned or anything. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't earned, it's just this arc didn't like make me feel like, oh, this makes it earned, you know? Like, I would have the same feelings about it than if they just didn't show it at all. The school festival arc, though, I think is underrated. And that's because of one reason, and that is Gentle Criminal. I love Gentle Criminal. I think he's not a cool villain, not really an interesting villain, but he's just, you know, I think he's just neat, you know? He's just Gentle Criminal, you know? But his backstory, though, I did think was interesting, you know, because just because you have good intentions doesn't mean like you're gonna do good. Like, he tried to help and that ended up hurting more than anything. Like, he caused other people to be hurt, even though in his life all he wanted to do was help people, and it kind of led him to go down this path of not even evilry. He's not even evil. That's the thing. He just does crimes. Like, I'm not saying doing crimes is good, but like, it's just like robberies and stuff. That it's not like irredeemable. You know, I definitely think he can come back to the hero side as a hero, you know. Like, his entire thing was he wanted to be a hero, but he couldn't. But he's powerful. He's pretty strong. So I do think that he should come back at some point in the series. And if he doesn't, I'm going to riot. But yeah, all that stuff with Eri was cool too. Kind of went a little bit too long about Gentle Criminal. It's a B tier arc, you know. It's not anything special, but I think it was better than these two. And just overall, it's a pretty good arc. The pro hero arc, though, I don't think was really much of anything. It might be, I'm gonna put it in C tier. People might get mad just because of the Endeavor fight versus the Nomu, and that's fair, I guess. It's just that you know, it's like the Nomu, they're cool. That fight was cool. Not really, I didn't like it that much. Like, I thought it was a cool fight. Hawks is a cool character. I really like him in the next arc, the next couple of arcs, but it wasn't really much of anything. I mean, obviously Endeavor has to now like face the thing that he's now the #1 hero, and this arc was very much focused on him, and I enjoyed that. I like the fact that Endeavor is now having to face that, and I think it's really helping towards his character development that the authors, you know, has been very clearly trying to push. You know, in the remedial course arc, he kind of like apologizes to Todoroki and says he's trying to be better, and this arc really helps like further that. It just doesn't really shape up to kind of the more like jam-packed arcs that are gonna be A and S. Joint training arc sucks though. That arc is terrible. It's so bad. I hate this arc. I hate this arc. It's not even entertaining. That's the thing. The battles aren't fun to watch or read. It's just, I don't know, man. I don't know why. It's just this arc just wasn't, there was like, there was no stakes. But like, there weren't really much stakes in the sports festival arc too. And I feel like that's kind of what they were trying to do. They were kind of trying to do what the sports festival did and the final exam arc did. Because the final exam arc, I said before, were like, they kind of helped you like get attached to the characters. And they kind of wanted to get you attached to 1B too, because they do play kind of a major, not even major. They kind of become a little bit more prominent later on in the series. But it didn't work. Class 1B had some one-note characters. Oh my least favorite character is a character, I think his name's like Manga or something, and his quirk is he can say sound effects and they happen, which isn't that bad. That's not a bad quirk, but his character design is literally just a manga page. It's just a page, and I'm like, what are we doing here? What is even going on? Do you expect me to get attached to this character, to be like, to watch this character fight and be like, yeah, let's go? Like, no, I don't like him. In fact, the only characters that like I've enjoyed in this arc were ones that had already been kind of developed, like Tetsu, Monoma, Kendo, I think is the orange hair girl's name. Like, they were fun to watch, but like the others not really. Shinso though, I did enjoy in this arc. I feel like he's the only redeeming factor about this. Also, Black Whip is cool, I guess. I mean, it is important for the story. It's just not, it's not a good arc. Like, I don't like that arc. And I know I probably have stronger opinions than other people do. It's such a drop off of quality that like it sucks, because people like try to say that My Hero Academia fell off, and this is like exactly proving their point. Like starting season 4, you can see I'm rating the arcs. Like these arcs are like very early on in the series, and then you know B and C like later on the arcs are mainly following there. But it's like these arcs aren't bad. I don't dislike these arcs, and then this comes and it's not fun, and people who watch it don't enjoy it, and it's like, well, I guess has My Hero Academia fallen off? Like I don't know, because it gets back up later on, so it's like, I don't know what to think. But yeah, Black Whip is important, and you know it does something. Deku also meets with the previous one for all users. I forgot about that. That's cool. That's pretty cool. The Meta Liberation Army arc is kind of weird, because this is the first like arc I read like that wasn't in the anime, that I didn't watch in the anime, I should say, because I think when I read it, like that was like part of the anime, but I had dropped the anime at that point, so it's so hard to rate it now, because I still haven't seen the anime version of it. I think I'm gonna put an A, just because it's monumental to the series. Like this is another big turning point. It really like, you know, shows how the League of Villains is growing. Shigaraki I think was really like cool to watch. Twice was amazing. Twice was so good. Toga too. Toga was cool. Dabi was cool. Twice was, I love Twice so much. And at the end scene when Shigaraki like puts his hand on the building and the entire building crumbles, and like I forgot how it went, but I think like that was either a clone Shigaraki or that was the real Shigaraki, and the clone Shigaraki was like, oh yeah, I knew he would do that because that's what I would do, or something like that. I don't really remember. But Twice, like he overcomes his like mental stuff and all that stuff, and then this is also such a big arc, and it's like this was a really interesting arc. And then the last one is the Endeavor Agency arc, which for some reason the anime put before the Meta Liberation Army arc, which makes no sense, because Hawks is sending a message to Endeavor about the Meta Liberation Army stuff, like all that stuff that happened, which hadn't happened yet. So it's like, you know, why would you do that? I feel like I remember like something about it having to do with the movie and them trying to promote the movie, because Hawks I think was in the movie, and and then like the Endeavor Agency arc had Hawks in it, so like that would kind of help like people want to see it more. I don't remember. I don't know. That could be completely off. But this was a pretty good arc. I still don't think it was that good. I like Hawks, and I kind of like how the Endeavor like, you know, got the message and all that stuff. So I think I will put it in B tier. And I honestly don't think there are any D tier arcs. Maybe I'm a little too harsh on Joint Training. Honestly, yeah, I'm a little bit too harsh on it. I'll keep it in D tier. It's not the worst arc to read. Shinso's cool. The comedy can be funny sometimes. And like some of the fights were interesting at parts. Overall, it's just not a good arc though. But I think I'm happy with this tier list. I guess maybe I should move Forest Training Camp. Honestly, I'm gonna move Forest Training Camp up, cause yeah, I think this is a little better. So S tier, like these are amazing arcs, super good, just really good. A tier is like these are really good arcs, but they're not perfect. You know, they're not a like oh my god, I have to keep watching, or oh my god, I have to keep reading. But they are very entertaining. B tier is like these are good arcs. They're not anything too special, but they're fun, entertaining arcs to read or watch. C tier is like, alright, this arc didn't really give me much of anything. Like, it happened. It was entertaining at some points, not entertaining at other points. But, you know, like, it happens. D tier, I don't like you. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you agree with my arcs, then let me know. If you don't, then don't let me know. Like, do that thing where you write a letter to someone that you don't like, and then you put it in your drawer and you wait a couple days, and you see if you still want to send it. Like, do that thing, and eventually you won't want to send a letter, and like, that's okay.